Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And today I thought I would discuss progression systems within video games and whether they're good for overall balance, especially in a competitive atmosphere. Or are they a crutch for limited or poor gameplay? A reason to keep the gamer or the player within the game for longer periods of time, or maybe even a reason to get somebody to purchase something via microtransaction. Now, this is something that I've talked about in great detail in various live streams. And similarly, I will preface that I'm not against progression systems. They can be very enjoyable and often expected within various genres. I look forward to progression in games just as much as anybody. And again, they can be fun and enjoyable. It's almost like getting a gift for Christmas or a birthday or something like that, right? You look forward to it like, ooh, I just got a new unlock. I just leveled up. I just got a new weapon or a piece of armor. I got more gold. I'm becoming more powerful. I can put more strength into my warrior or intelligence into my sorcerer or dex for the ranger or whatever. Speaking of those character classes, pen and paper, Dungeons and Dragons, something before video games, a time where you got together with your friends and you leveled up your characters. And at the end of a session, you looked forward to tallying up those points, seeing if you leveled up, looking at your new gear, identifying a scroll to see if it's a new spell, maybe checking out a magical weapon that you found in some dark dungeon. It's part of the fun getting that new gear and equipment. And it has obviously inspired many video games, right? Whether it's a single player role playing game or a massively multiplayer online role playing game like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy or EverQuest or Dark Age of Camelot or whatever other old MMO that would further date myself. But yes, it's enjoyable. I too look forward to it and I wouldn't have it any other way. However, when discussing competitive games, specifically shooters, third person, first person, whatever, are they good for the game? Now, we have to remember that not everybody has the same amount of game time every week. There are people that have full-time jobs that take them out of their house, away from their console or PC. Sometimes people have two jobs or school and a family, kids, whatever, things that you have to do, responsibilities, those boring damn adult responsibilities that lead us away from our games. So we don't always have the same amount of time as everybody to be able to unlock and progress in a video game. And if you're playing an FPS, this could potentially put you at a disadvantage. If the new Call of Duty comes out, and I bring up COD a lot for this example because it's typically one of the more popular shooters out there that has a very well-known progression system. If a new COD comes out, which it does every year or so, they're expected to have progression systems. If they didn't have them, I'm sure people would raise a big stink over it and riot in the streets. It's that expected. People want it. They crave it. They've grown up with it to the point where they don't know any other way. It has to have it. They have to have weapons to unlock, gadgets or attachments to unlock to better their weapon or their character, right? There has to be some sort of level up system or experience that they get for eliminations and completing objectives and finishing a matchup. They have to have something that remains. There has to be titles and cards and cosmetics and sprays and things of that nature outside of what you might be able to buy in a cash shop via microtransaction. Now, I can tell you that first-person shooters existed perfectly fine without progression systems. Games dating back to the 90s, whether it was the original Wolfenstein 3D, going into Doom in 93 and Quake 1 in 96. We played these games perfectly fine for hours upon hours of time without dedicated or obvious progression systems. Now, a lot of games have natural progression. You beat a game, you're getting through the game, you're getting through the final bosses or the mini bosses, and you're getting towards the end, and maybe you're finding weapons along the way. So there is a bit of natural progression, but there's nothing that's obvious. You're not getting an attachment. You're not getting a new vertical grip, a scope, a buttstock, an extended magazine. You're not getting anything that makes the weapon that you found in the level any better. When it comes to the multiplayer side of a game like Quake from the mid-90s, we started out, I think it was 8 versus 8, 16 players, a little bit more, up to 32 a little later on when we started seeing dedicated servers. I could start talking about the pitfalls of analog modems and whatnot for hours, but that's a topic for another discussion or a nostalgia night. But we had about 8 weapons in a game like Quake. Shotgun, super shotgun, nail gun, super nail gun, grenade launcher, rocket launcher, and lightning gun, which I think was known officially as the bolt gun. But yeah, I think there was about 8 weapons. There was an axe, so I think including that, we had about 8, unless my math is terrible, which it usually is, but ignore it for now. So anyway, that's all we had. And the weapons were just thrown around the levels. You had to run around and find them. You'd spawn in. Think about it like a mini battle royale, where you had a level, you spawned in, you had to find the best weapons and eliminate the enemy players. Everybody started out exactly the same. You had 100 health, no armor. You had to find armor. You could find armor pickups. You could find health pickups, ammo, the weapons, as I mentioned earlier. Often some of the better weapons were in locations that might be a little harder to get to because they were that good. I remember the rocket launcher being generally considered the best weapon of Quake. It did a lot of damage. It had splash damage, and you could also rocket jump with it if you were good enough, which would damage yourself in exchange for some mobility, but it might allow you to achieve high ground advantage. It might get you to a camping position or somewhere that you could snipe with the rocket launcher at great distances and further annoy the enemy players. But it was all about map knowledge and practice time. And these are things that are, of course, innate to any type of game or even real sport like football, soccer, hockey, whatever. Anybody that practices gets better. But I think it's more a question of regulating those sports or making these games equal or balanced or creating an even playing field. If you think about an athletic sport like football or hockey, basketball, baseball, what have you, the players may be different. They may have different strengths and weaknesses. Somebody might be faster. Somebody might be able to jump higher or skate faster or whatever. You might have a better goaltender or a better offense, defense. That could come down to the individual player skill or practice time, coaching, many variables there. But for the most part, everybody's balanced. The playing field is the same. They're even. Everybody has a regulation size net or goal. The football field is the same size. The goalposts are identical. The field is balanced, right? Players may be a little different, but they might have access to the same things. Pads in hockey, there's hockey sticks, pads, there's one puck. Everybody has different brands and so on and so forth, but overall, it's pretty balanced in that respect. When it comes to a video game, same thing. If you look at Quake, again, as an example, or Unreal Tournament, something similar, everybody has access to the same weapons. They have the exact same chance to achieve victory as everybody else, minus, of course, practice time. That's an uncontrollable variable. But the game developer, the studio, has the ability to at least balance the game around, including weapons and items that everybody can acquire at the exact same time. Now, in a modern day shooter, something like Call of Duty, Battlefield, what have you, you have more obvious dedicated progression systems. There are weapon systems or gadgets or unlocks or attachments that have to be acquired over time or through experience, more eliminations, in order to unlock a vertical foregrip on a rifle, a buttstock that may increase your ability to handle recoil. It might make your weapon more stable, an extended magazine which gives you more ammunition. These are things that have to be earned through playing the game a lot longer. Now, in some cases, this could be considered fun, right? Like you're trying to unlock that new scope. Oh, okay, man, I can't wait to get the 2 times or the 3 times scope. Or maybe you like playing the sniper class in a video game. Maybe you like having some sort of DMR or a bolt action rifle, and you want to engage a target from distance. You're looking forward to that scope that has a 6 times or an 8 times zoom, maybe even more if it's a longer range fighting situation like you might be presented with in Battlefield. But it's something that you still might have to unlock. There's a base amount of weapons. There are starter guns, and modern day first person shooters, to be fair, those starter weapons are typically balanced. I think ultimately a good player will be able to take a starter weapon and still do well. Uh, we're not necessarily running into situations where a lot of these unlocks are super unbalanced. I seem to remember one of the Battlefield games, I think it was Battlefield 3 or 4, had like a thermal scope that was really overpowered. It would allow you to see enemies even in broad daylight very easily. And this was something that you had to unlock through hours upon hours of playing the game. It was a way later unlock. And I think later on they started introducing uh, time skips or time saver unlock packs. You could buy a class's entire kit for $10 or something. And that's a whole other debate going into microtransactions that I won't get into today. But overall, again, progression systems here potentially causing an issue if you don't have access to that thermal scope. If that makes you or allows you to see players easily, then you might say that there's a problem there. Or if you have gadgets or attachments for your weapon that make you more potent against an adversary, if you have a scope that provides you with an advantage over a new player that simply hasn't had the same amount of time as you to unlock something, is that fair? Is that balanced gameplay? Is that great for the game at the end of the day? Is it necessary? Can we simply make a game where you throw down your $60 for the brand new AAA video game and everybody has everything already? Or is that not great? Is that something that we don't expect? Do we want to unlock these things? Now remember, you spent your money on this game. You've already bought the game, but now you're having to work or grind to unlock these extra items, these gadgets, these attachments, these weapons, armor, whatever kit, power-ups, abilities, to progress our character, to progress our ability to achieve victory. We've already bought the game. Why do we also have to work to unlock these extra things? Why do we always see that as a good thing? Are these progression systems in some way tricking us into believing that they're making the game better? Or are they covering up the fact that there's not that much gameplay under the hood? We're looking at this fancy packaging, these beautiful graphics and wonderful sounds, but is there a lot to the core gameplay? A lot of these games too, they don't even have single player experiences anymore, and they're often just competitive multiplayer situations. And that's not a bad thing. That's fine. I play a lot of games that are mostly PvP. Totally expected. But I often wonder if these progression systems are making up for maybe a lack of maps or a lack of modes or scenarios that we can enjoy without the progression system. If we're only addicted to the grind or achieving an unlock of some sort, are we really enjoying the game in the same way that we used to enjoy older games, right? Now, going back to Quake of the mid-90s, this game had a single-player experience. It could be played cooperatively. Of course, again, at that time, you're probably talking analog modems until late 90s, or maybe cable modem and ISDN starts showing up and whatnot. But, again, the struggle to play multiplayer at that time was a whole other animal. But you could play co-op, you could play single player, you could play free-for-all, deathmatch, you could play team deathmatch. Later on, there were mods, of course, that kept the game alive for a lot longer. We had Capture the Flag for the first time. We had Team Fortress, which was a Quake 1 mod, believe it or not. people making skins that you could download and add to the game, and just various other mods that people created. Action Quake and Navy SEALs, which was the precursor to Counter-Strike, made by a developer that wanted some realism out of Quake at the time. Yeah, there's so many mods that kept the game alive, but they were free mods. They weren't necessarily things that you had to progress. They were things that you could download, install, and just play. And mostly it came down to just, hey, I want to win. I want to be number one if it's a free for all deathmatch scenario, or I want our team to achieve victory. We want to capture, the three flags required to win a match, or we want to have top frags in a team versus team experience. Whatever it was mostly down to simply winning, right? Just like playing a game of basketball or football or hockey or soccer, whatever it would be, right? We just want to win and maybe get into the playoffs. That was sort of the progression. It's a little bit more natural, but everything is ultimately balanced. You're not playing trying to get a better hockey stick. Like, oh, if I play and get to level 2, I'm going to get this hockey stick attachment. It's, I'm going to add some more tape to the front of the stick and it's going to be more durable. It's going to last longer, or it's going to be able to hit the puck harder into the net. Like, we don't have those types of systems, but it's funny that they are in our first person shooters where we have things that actually make you better than somebody else. Now, again, a really good player is going to be able to eliminate somebody who has the best gear. Gear doesn't always guarantee victory, but it can help, especially in an experienced esports scenario, right? Where the players are of a higher caliber and they're already good mechanically, or maybe they have fantastic game sensibility or sense that allows them to figure out proper positioning, or maybe their movement skills are top notch. But now you add in the weapon potential or the armor potential of the progression system to the point where it affects new players coming into the game. Let's say you get into a game late. You just bought a game. COD's been out for 2 months. You're getting in late. You finally have some time to play. Maybe you got a lot of work, things going on, and you have a couple hours to play a week, and that's it. Are you going to be able to achieve a victory over somebody who's not only got more practice and playtime than you, but has flat out better weapons than you? I have a friend who plays COD occasionally, and I think he's mentioned that there's a website that will show you what the current meta is. It'll say, oh, this is the meta for this month, this current patch update as of this version of the game. This weapon has the best damage or rate of fire. It's the most consistent. It's got the best recoil. You've got websites that tell you, okay, get this weapon and put these attachments on it. Make sure to use this scope, this grip, this buttstock, this thing. And all that requires you to play the game more because you have to level up and you have to get to that point. And in some cases, they'll tie those systems into a base game in order to progress in another portion of the game. For example, playing a battle royale portion of Call of Duty Warzone. I think, I could be wrong about this, forgive me, but some weapons and unlocks are only available in Battle Royale if you've unlocked them through the base deathmatch experience, the TDM within COD multiplayer, which you have to purchase. Some of these things can only be unlocked or opened up later. So you have to get them. I'm trying to think about how this works. You have to get them through the base game, and then you can use them in the Battle Royale. Or you can take a longer period of time to unlock them slowly through playing the BR. So you can still get them, but it's going to take a lot longer versus acquiring them in the deathmatch version of the game. I think that's right. Again, I could be wrong. Sorry. Not that much thought went into that portion of the discussion. But I think there are games that do that. They're trying to get you to buy the base game, progress in that game so that you'll have the unlocks ready for the BR. But that's just one example of an issue that I can see existing. Um, Levels, are we getting as many levels as we used to within our shooters? Are we getting as much content in terms of modes to play? In some cases, you could maybe say more. We did rely a lot on mods back in the day. Again, Quake is a very simple game. It shipped with, I think, deathmatch, maybe team deathmatch. There was no CTF built into the core game. There was no Team Fortress. There was no special modes. It was very limited. If anything, you could say that we probably get a little bit more out of our first-person shooter experiences these days. But still, we managed to enjoy them for a long period of time, and we didn't necessarily need a progression system to be able to enjoy those games. It just came down to practice time, player skill, game sense, hand-eye coordination, reflexes, traditional skills that you might use every day in other tasks. But with these progression systems, I'm wondering if we're leaning on them a bit much. Are they, in some cases, a crutch? Are we getting fewer levels designed in a video game? Are we getting fewer modes? Are we getting more? Are we able to look at this from the perspective of somebody who has a limited amount of time and can't unlock all these things and earn these things? I'll often see a lot of live streamers complain about the fact that a game needs more of a progression system, or there needs to be more unlocks or achievements within a game. And I'm thinking, like, well, not everybody has 8 hours a day to play video games. Not everybody plays video games for a living. So we have to think about, if you're a studio, if you're a game developer, you have to think about the fact that you're making this game for everyone. You're also making this game for people that don't have the exact same amount of free time to enjoy it. So if I get into a game and I'm working my 9 to 5 job and I'm in late, I don't want to go up against somebody who's got a meta weapon with meta unlocks that has like limited recoil and more stopping power than me, simply because I can't play it as much. Whereas if I was playing a game like Quake or Unreal Tournament back in the day, I hop into a server and it's just down to the first person to find the rocket launcher, right? And it's like, okay, I at least know where the rocket launcher is. I'm going to try to get it. I didn't get it this time, but I've respawned and now I'm going to go get it. But I know that if I do go get that rocket launcher, it's going to be the exact same one that everybody else has. It's then going to come down to skill. And again, somebody might have more practice time. There's nothing we can do about that. But I think it's the game developer's job to balance the game as much as possible so that everybody has at least the same chance to be successful without necessarily having to put time into unlocking a gadget or an attachment that makes it better, ultimately better, increasing the amount of time. And again, progression systems, you can look at them like something fun, something to look forward to, but I can't help but wonder if they're implemented in a way to keep us around longer, to potentially maybe even get us to spend money via microtransaction to progress faster with like a tier skip. You'll see battle pass progression tier skips and things like that that you can buy for an extra $5 or $10. Again, Battlefield, I think, even had a thing where you could purchase entire unlock packs. I don't know if they still do it, but I remember for a while they were experimenting with that, where you could buy all the unlocks for a class so that you could catch up. But again, then you're spending an additional $10 when you've already bought the game. You paid your $60 for the game, $70 for the game, depending on where you live. It might be even more. Why should you have to spend even more to unlock something that should have come with the base purchase, perhaps? Is it something that's being created to get us to spend money in a cash shop? Hey, buy this battle pass to get these extra things. Buy this to get these things faster. Buy this game to get access to these weapons, to get access to the modes which keep you in the game, which allow you to earn things. Look at how much time you're having to put and money you're having to put into unlocking things. I don't know. I tend to wonder if this is ultimately for the greater good of the game, and whether we think we like progression systems as much as we really should. You could say that there is a lot more to game development these days, with graphics and sound being what they are these days in comparison. It takes a lot longer to make a game than it ever has been before because of the advances in technology. In some cases, you could say maybe it's easier to make video games than it used to be, but it's also, I think, more challenging because of our expectations as gamers, as players. We expect far more from these game developers to the point where it might even be considered a bit unfair. Our expectations are a bit unrealistic, and our standards have raised or increased to the point where we're putting these developers in impossible situations, having to come up with gameplay that's so unique and different and able to consume enough of our time that we're going to praise it highly on a platform like Steam. So I don't know. I do think we are putting devs in impossible situations by further demanding these progression systems. But I think it's good to remember the past, to think about games of the past. They always say it's important to learn from history so as to not repeat the mistakes of the past. I think the same can be said in the entertainment realm, right? When we're playing our video games, when we're watching movies and shows, hey, look at how things were done before. Can we make this better without necessarily putting the player through some sort of grind? Our time on this rock is limited. We don't want to spend it working in a video game. I mean, some people like that sort of thing, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, if I've spent $60 on a game, I expect it to provide me with the tools necessary to compete at the same level as everybody else, regardless of the amount of free time I may or may not have. I think that at the end of the day, somebody that just has better situational awareness, positional awareness, somebody that has good game sense and mechanical ability, that they're able to compete even if they don't have the best weapon or unlock or armor in the game. Again, I think some of these things can be fun. They are. I wouldn't have it any other way with certain games, especially role-playing games. But I think for an FPS or a competitive game, it should be toned down a bit, perhaps, or maybe made easier to unlock or achieve certain things. And again, I think it has. I think even Call of Duties, which have some of the most obvious progression systems on the planet, are better about making starting weapons efficient and potent. So again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I am questioning whether we like these things as much as we think we do. Do we really like progression systems as much as we think we do? If we got rid of them, if you got rid of a progression, think of your favorite game, whatever it may be, and think about the progression system in it. If that game didn't have it, would the game still be enjoyable? Would you still be able to play that game? How many hours would you be able to play that game for? How many hours do you need to play that game for? That's a question. Is the game fun if all those weapons were just unlocked and you could just choose them and pick them at any time to play the game? Would the game be fun if you didn't have to level up? Food for thought. Interesting to think about. And again, my experience comes from playing a lot of those shooters in the 90s that just simply didn't have obvious progression systems. Everybody had the same gear and access to the same equipment. The game was balanced. It was purely about the amount of time you had played the game, your skill, your hand-eye coordination, nailing your mouse sensitivity, honing it to the point where it was just right for your abilities. I kind of miss those days. I kind of do. Even though I can enjoy a progression system and I think that they have a place within certain games, I feel that maybe some studios are over relying on them to increase or inflate playtime or to get you to potentially spend money somewhere else via microtransaction. So I think there are pros and cons to progression systems. But with that said, I'd love to hear what you have to say about the topic. What are some games that you play? Do they have obvious progression systems? Do you think we'd be better off with limited progression systems, especially in competitive games? Again, what are some examples of games that you think have done it right or potentially wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.